James DeLaGarza here. I want to talk to you, and then we're going to call this part one. All this talk about the National Association of Realtor, guilty verdict with collusion, and all the stuff that we're now seeing. There's a lot of misinformation, and it's a wide spectrum of rates have always been negotiable, and then all the way down to they're going to change, they're going to lower. A lot of this is going to remain the same, and I'll explain. So how did we get here? First of all, they were found guilty of collusion. Now, in the settlement, they say, we don't admit any fault. Although there's a lot of realtors in the association joining that bandwagon and saying, rates have always been negotiable. What are they talking about? In practice and in theory, no, they haven't. How do I know that? Because I was a huge disruption in this market back in '95. I had been in the market for 3 years at the time. And having been a graduate of business school and kind of having a different mindset, bringing that into an industry that's relatively easy to get into, take a 6-week course, pass an easy test. Guess what? I'm a realtor, and I'm now handling one of the most expensive endeavors and investments that you'll ever go through. That's crazy. But why do they do that? Well, because the National Association of Realtors is the largest trade organization. Millions. People paying their $400 plus fees to go to the National Association, to the State Association, and local association. Make a lot of money. They have huge lobbyists. I'll tell you this, one of the reasons why I've just not been a fan of it, I've never ever contributed to their political action committee fund, is I remember here in Texas years ago, I was wondering, how come people can't borrow equity out of their house? And I found out that the biggest push for them to not pass that legislation in Texas was the Association of Realtors. And I thought, well, why would they do that? Well, because they didn't want you to tap into your equity. They wanted you, well, I guess we got to sell the house. That helps the association. So selfish in nature. I get all that, but when I learned that, I'm like, man, these guys, I don't like that. So why am I a member? You have to be. And I'm going to tell you something. From my perspective, they dodged a huge bullet, but it's coming. It's coming. And that is the brand and how homes are sold. New realtors, when they come out, well, how do I get business? Go talk to this buy owner. He's trying to sell it by himself. The first thing you talk about is putting it on the MLS, the multiple listing service. Who has that? Association of Realtors. It's a monopoly. My opinion. Try selling your house any other means. It's hard. It's difficult. You could put the worst realtor, and I know this because we've had a boom market for the last 12, 13 years, the longest I've seen in my 32 years of practice. He could put a listing into the computer, that's 85% of it. The exposure that he gets, the internet, the access, that's how people go find a home. And then that trails in and trickles down into all these other sites, the Zillows and the Realtor.com and 40 other sites. You can Google an address and you'll see it come up in all these different addresses. But it starts by the gateway of the MLS. And that's something that they've always protected. And it's monopoly. There's no other way to sell a house when it comes down to it. I'm a realtor. I know that. That's the access. So what's the entry fee? It's pretty high. Guys, let me speak to it as clear as day. Because I have taken hundreds of screenshots and message boards between realtors. There is collusion. And any realtor who tells you otherwise is not to be trusted. There has been an undertone current over these decades to protect the 6% the commission rate. How do I know? In '95, when I started my company, I started applying everything I'd learned in business school. First, to keep it simple. How quickly were homes selling? Pretty quick. Once we hit the internet age, I mean, you can satellite imagery, you can find it out at all the schools. It made our life easier. Selling a home is the easiest that it's ever been in my 32 years of practice. But what about realtors? You would think that the commission rates would come down over time, right? No, they protect it. In fact, I started lowering my commission rate as soon as I got into business. I said, well, gosh, these homes are selling in days, sometimes hours. Why am I charging 6? I don't need to charge 6. Let me deal with volume. And so I started going down, to about 1% down, 5%. Again, this is in a market that's 6%. It's always been customary. It's always been standard. That's why they were found guilty. You have all these realtors saying, well, rates are negotiable. In theory, no. In practice, no. They're just not. How do I know? Because I get attacked. What are you doing charging that low commission rate? You're crazy. You don't know your worth. It had nothing to do about worth. It had everything to do with what product am I offering to the market. And before I knew it, I was running an inventory of around 40 listings. I had to hire a team of other agents and assistants to maintain, good service for my clients. Houses were selling fast. I looked like a hero. Over time, about a decade, commission rates would start to come down a little bit. People were starting to get competitive. But you still had a lot of the old heads, and now I'm an old head, but I don't have the old head mentality. They're like, you're getting what you pay for. How come you're charging this and that? That's just ridiculous. You don't know your worth. Guys, I even today, there's collusion. Even after this verdict. I've got hundreds of screenshots. I do that just because people say, oh, no, there's no collusion. Yes, there is. In practice, what happens? Where's this 6%? How's it divvied up? So the listing agent gets 3, buyer's agent gets 3. I remember my friend, he's a broker, or actually a realtor up in Minnesota. I said, what do buyer's agents typically make up there? He goes, 2.4%. How do you come up with 2.4%? Well, that's just what everyone does. Well, if everyone's doing it, that's collusion. What is the buyer's agent commission in the North Texas area? It's 3%. It's been that way since I've been in the business. Listing agent typically gets 3. When I do a 5% commission, I usually get 2 on the listing side, and I've got to offer 3. I can't split it down the middle. I'll tell you why. What's this collusion going on? Oh man, there's so much out there, and I wonder, are these guys idiots? And I don't mean to be disparaging like that, but I do, because they're out there suggesting, like, making comments such as, can you believe this builder's offering this? Can you believe this guy's offering this commission? I work hard. I deserve my 3. I'm not going to show that listing. I see that a lot. And years ago, I saw it on a rampant scale. That's why it never fazed me, because when I did a 5% commission, I do 2 for me and 3 for them. I knew not to rock the boat. If I did it straight down the middle and offered 2.5, I knew they weren't going to show the house. They'd find an excuse not to do it, because the buyer's agent has that much control. And it happens. I've seen it, and I still see it, and I still read about it. So when I talk to people now, and that's why I'm sharing this video, the question becomes, are commission rates going to come down? Over time, yes. There's a little resistance. So what happened with this verdict, over time it'll come down. But I just watched a great video from a really good realtor out in LA. If you Google it, you probably see it. He's well known. He's already saying out there that the LA realtors are getting together. They're going to offer 2.5%. That's collusion. That's the Anti-Sherman Trust Act. You cannot do that. That's what's coming down the pipeline. I can assure you, for someone that's done this for so many years, that's what's coming next. And that's not going to be one that you can easily settle and get out of, because it'll break up the monopoly of the MLS, because there is an entry fee. Getting on the MLS is huge. And there's not many realtors that are going to get you on there for a lower rate. Now, we've been doing that for years. That's why we deal with a lot of volume. Now, I'll tell you, going back years ago, maybe 15 years plus, there were some other pioneers in the lower commission. Now, there's some that took it to extreme and they did flat service fees. I said, we'll list it, we'll do it, we'll just have them contact you, and then y'all can negotiate it. You know what? That was a great bypass around the middle guy, which is us, the realtor. But guess what happened? People were complaining. What did the National Association of Realtors do? They came up with a minimum standards mandate. If you're going to be a realtor, which means you're going to list homes on the MLS, which is the only way to really sell a house, you have to adhere to these standards. So what they do? They put all these requirements on these brokers. And you can't get away with just saying, hey, we're just going to back up. You let you guys here. We're putting it on the MLS. They took that all away. Because they had to protect the commission. They had to protect it. That's collusion. So, how did we get here? Why were they found guilty? Because there's been widespread collusion. Oh, I know. I still hear about it. I still hear people. In fact, I remember years ago. Now, when you take your real estate test and you learn and you raise your right hand to the code of ethics, it all says rates are negotiable and you can't say there's customary and standard. Okay, that's great. Put it in print, but here's how we really act. We'll do the minimum standards. We'll protect your commission. That's really why they were found guilty. Doesn't matter what you say. These realtors are now saying, well, commissions have always been negotiable. Not really. Not really. They're not. There's a lot of consumers that believe the idea that, oh, it must be 6. I got to, pay 6%. No, you do not. You don't. Here's the reality of it. I may charge 4%, 5%, whatever it may be for someone to sell a house, which is for me telling them 1 or 2% because it's my side. They're going to ask me, what should I offer? I'm a business guy. I'm business minded. There's the integrity side of things and there's the reality side of things. Are commission rates coming down? Probably not as much as people think so. Because guess what's going to happen? The same mindset that I've seen, contrary to everything that they're publicly saying, oh yeah, they're negotiable, this and that. No. There'll be a lot of people not showing the homes if they're not offering a buyer's agent commission. I'm looking straight in the eye, not even breaking eye contact. This is important. So the reality when I talk to a seller is going to be this. Guys, yes, you can offer anything you want. But what I've seen lately is the chatter out there is they're not showing it if they're not getting 2.5 or 3. There's going to be a range. It's going to reset a little bit, but not much. In fact, there'll be some markets it may not reset at all. That's collusion. They haven't fixed it. They won't fix that until they break up that monopoly. How they do that, I don't know. It's out of my realm of thought process and everything. But I do know the way you sell a house is to go through a broker and put it on the MLS, because if you go by owner, man, you're just not getting the exposure, as much exposure. So we can go into all the idea of what we could do to negotiate a better price, so forth and so forth, okay? But at the end of the day, if you're not in the MLS, it's really not out there. That's the product, and that comes with typically the higher commission rate. But that's how we got here. It's collusion all day long. Now, I don't care that the legal scholars and everyone and the attorneys negotiated saying, we're going to pay this settlement, 400 something million, Remax, Anywhere Realty, Berkshire Hathaway, Keller Williams, millions they settled for as part of the same lawsuit. I will tell you, there's an undertone current of 6%. Don't tell anyone. What are you doing? It's there. But in the agreement, they're saying, we're not making any admission of guilt. Okay, that's fine. Y'all have a little bit of a reprieve, but it's coming because there is widespread collusion. Plain and simple. And that's how we got here.